Are you not entertained?
Yes, sir! We'll have a real good time!
He's Dave, and I'm Dallas, and this is Vintertainment. We have opinions on just about everything. Sometimes those opinions are spot on. Sometimes they go down easier with a glass of wine. This is Vintertainment, the wine and entertainment pairing podcast.
Are you in the mood for a little Vintertainment? Then let us, Dallas and Dave, be your guides.
Yes, this is the show where we pair wine with entertainment, delude ourselves into thinking you want to hear what we have to say about different pieces of pop culture and art, but know for a fact that you need to hear what we have to say about wine because, man, who knows nothing about wine? But listen to this show and you'll soon know something, a little bit of something, each episode. Now, before we get started, what? Did our name just change? Yes, indeed. This show is formerly known as Wine and ... Wine and ellipses. But as mentioned in our previous episode, we discovered the hard way how search engine unfriendly that name was. This show is somewhat unique. It's always been a challenge to name it. We even tried Buzzsprout's custom AI tailor-made to come up with podcast names using best practices. And the results AI came up with were less than stellar. Neither me nor Dallas liked them at all. But thanks to Dallas's brilliant creative mind, we are now called Vintertainment. It's genius! Where wine and entertainment intersect. It's fucking brilliant, right? A brilliant best friend is still 1,000 times better than shitty fucking AI, kids. Remember that. We even posted a video of that moment when we tried the AI names, and then Dallas dropped this name on me all in real time. We posted this on our Substack, on which I'm going to name drop, our home base of operations, which you can find at its brand new URL, vintertainmentstudios.com. That is where you'll find our Substack. Our Substack is where you'll find a directory of all of our episodes, directories of all the wine and entertainment pairings broken down by category, bonus pairings not featured on this podcast, articles on the wine and entertainment industries, guest collabs with other wine and entertainment writers, interactive polls. If you enjoy this podcast whatsoever, you simply must go follow us on Substack. That is at vintertainmentstudios.com.
So, today is a special episode. We're going to take a moment to recap who we are, what it is we do here, and what we plan to do going forward. And then we're going to mention our respective favorite episodes, which we think you should go and listen to before next week. But let's start with a thank you to our first pour friends. That's P-O-U-R, get it? Those of you who've been with us from the early days, who've witnessed our fumbling, our first iterations, and now watch as we cement who we are and what we do as we, for the final time, we hope, reintroduce ourselves to the worlds of wine and entertainment as Vintertainment. And then to our tasting flight friends, get it? Those of you who are new here or simply dabbling, please by all means scroll through our previous content selections where we commune, gab, argue with, and praise some absolutely fascinating artists and professionals from all things wine, entertainment, and beyond. In fact, we're about to tell you which episodes we think are the best of the best, and to cherry pick them for you and give you a list where you should start. But just hold on to your corks, because Vintertainment has big and completely unrealistic aims that threaten to set the worlds of both entertainment and wine on literal fire. Hashtag LA Strong, by the way. But for now, let's start by talking about who we are. I'm Dallas, a writer, world builder, and director who has spent the better part of a decade and a half in and around Hollywood with the entertainment industry. I've either been employed by or created a number of firms, including Killing the Grizzly Lit Development Agency, Splice Pictures, Etc. Entertainment, and Miller Anderson Creative. From comic books and graphic novels to animation, music, feature film, and television, I've tasted the rainbow and still haven't tired of storytelling. In fact, be prepared for some very interesting things on that front in the not-too-distant future. My relationship with wine started long ago as my family was filled with fruit winemakers. Fruit wine being a colloquial term given to wines made from non-grape fruits and non-traditional grape varieties. These winemakers were always experimenting and perfecting their wines. And we kids were always tasting. There was always a bottle or 10 on a shelf in a back room of various tasty vino concoctions featuring peaches, cherries, grapes, muscadines, and a host of other bases. Eventually, my family opened a liquor store where more efficient market wines were on sale. The greater part of my adult life has not been alcohol-centric in any way. In fact, I wasn't really a fan in any significant way, including wine, until a few years ago. But after the death of my father, the death of a close friend, and a trip to France in the months leading up to COVID, I developed a taste for wine. It was the perfect storm of grief, inspiration, and the wine country of France. And as a writer, it was just natural. Eventually, I found my way into wine. My approach to wine is far less academic, though, than traditional culture would like, as I enjoy the lyrical and poetic nature of wine. I enjoy how, depending on the palate, the time of day, the bottle, and innumerable other factors, the experience of wine can differ tremendously. And it's that difference, that variance, that range that I like. As a writer and world builder, I approach wine in the same way I approach new work. I allow the characters to explain, express, and reveal themselves to me rather than trying to determine which assets and qualities they possess based on some standardized metric or scale. Wine is and will always be a spirit. I honor the spirit of wine by allowing the wine to tell me its story. That's my angle. And a good storyteller always enjoys hearing a good story.
And I am Dave. I've been an entertainment industry professional for many years. I've worked in creative development, talent management, editorial, data management for Nielsen, and as a coordinator for Sundance. I was also never into wine in my youth. I was never into drinking either, but became a big fat wine nerd in my 30s. It's kind of a long story how I got into wine. It actually started as pain management for an injury that I gave myself. And not being into alcohol, I had noticed that my pain subsided on the rare occasion I went out for a social cocktail or two, and I was like, "Ooh, that's a dangerous thought. let's not follow that too far down the rabbit hole." But I realized that wine was something that had kind of moderate alcohol levels, and so I was like, maybe that's something I can control. Like, just have a glass of wine a night. And so I had worked, I'm in the entertainment industry. I have a degree in acting, AKA I waited tables when I was young. I worked in restaurants, right? I worked at a restaurant that had a 200 bottle wine list, and one 3-day weekend, they had us come in about 2 hours before the shift started. And over the course of 3 days, a sommelier that had put together that 200 bottle wine list had us taste almost every single wine on that list. We did not open the Opus One, fucker, but he did open a lot of the others. And to be fair, I disliked almost all of them. I'm like, yeah, I don't get it. This tastes like sour grape juice. I don't understand it. But there was one wine. It was a David Bruce Petit Syrah out of California. David Bruce, the winery, is still around. He has sadly passed away since. They do not produce a Petit Syrah anymore, as far as I can tell. But I was able to recently, I found an old bottle of David Bruce. I think it was in 1997, and got to try it. And that was nice to be able to go back. Because 1997, this would have been around 2000, 2001 that I was working this restaurant. So that might have been pretty close to what the bottle vintage probably was that I tasted. But it was the first wine that I took a sip of. And I thought, okay, if I tried, I can see myself liking this. So when I finally had this injury and I was like, maybe I want to have a drink every night, but I don't want a drink, right? I just want something gentle because I'm a lightweight and I'm not that into alcohol or alcoholic beverages. So I went to Trader Joe's, started buying every Petit Syrah they had there, which is only like 2 or 3. And then also being one of those people, like I'm this person that every time I go to the grocery store, I want to find like, what is the weird, almost borderline stupid cookie flavor or ice cream flavor, like the wackadoodle flavor that suddenly has come out that's brand new that I've never tried before. I constantly look for the new stuff. I never want to eat the same thing or drink the same thing forever. And so eventually, pretty quickly actually, I was like, okay, what else is there besides these 3 Petit Syrahs at Trader Joe's? And then I kept drinking and drinking different wines. And eventually, of course, you hit that moment where you're like, okay, what is all this shit? Like, what are these wines? What are all these words on the label? I don't know what any of this is. And I wanted to know because I'm a variety fiend. And so I wanted to know what all this variety was and what it all meant. And now it's been a little over 10 years later. That rabbit hole is thoroughly, I'm out the other end of the rabbit hole at this point. In fact, just last year, if you've been following us, you already know this, but just last year, I passed my WSET Level 3 certification in wine. So while I was with Sundance, actually, when we first started this whole thing while I was at Sundance, this Wine and Something show with Dallas. And since then, I have fully transitioned into wine professionally. I'm very, very new to it, but I have done that. I currently work for a winery based in LA in Paso Robles called The Blending Lab. I work their tasting room, I work their membership, and the unique part of the Blending Lab is they offer wine blending classes, which I now teach. This is a class where we walk you through how to blind taste wines, break them down by acidity, body, and sweetness, learn how those work for your palate, and then you begin blending them to find your own custom blend, which you then get to take home at the very end. These aren't classes geared towards professionals in the wine trade. These are classes for anybody. Normally, no one gets to blend wine like this unless they do work in the wine trade, but you get to learn so much about wine by doing this, and when guided by someone who can answer questions, put the pieces together for you, etc. So, on that note, let's talk about how this show came about.
Indeed. So to know how the show came about, perhaps a bit of express backstory on how we met is necessary. In the future, our legend will likely be known as Killing the Grizzly Corps, as we both relocated to LA around the same time and eventually joined forces in a professional capacity under the banner Killing the Grizzly. At the time, I was working on a massive graphic novel series, and when I say massive, I mean ridiculous, and it will probably never see the light of day because it's so massive.
I've still never seen it.
And it's so true, and it's been, 15 years? And I needed a second pair of eyes to give me some perspective, so I placed an ad on that great post board in the sky, Craigslist, and a number of people responded. Lots of people responded, in fact, but the only non-sexual response was by, you guessed it, Dave. I sent him a script.
Non-sexual is my name, non-sexual is my game. Hey, wait a minute.
Indeed. And I sent him a script just as a test to see if he was bonkers, because back in those days, everyone on Craigslist was bonkers. And within a week, we were exchanging ideas. And shockingly, much to my chagrin, many of his ideas were pretty damn good, I have to say. And
I just licked and touched myself. Yeah, it's an audio podcast. That doesn't work. Never mind.
That's right. It doesn't work. Although we might do some Foley at some good, interesting Foley at some point. From there, we bonded over a love of the independent artists across media and shared our obscure collections and tastes. We found a mere geek in one another, and then we thought, what if we could take these amazing indie creators and build an on-ramp for them into Hollywood? And thus, together, we founded a first-of-its-kind comic book lit and management agency called Killing the Grizzly. For years, we were the guys, as we were one of the few places that accepted outside of comic book and graphic novel submissions. We co-agented with ICM and sold to companies as diverse as Tokyo Pop, Sony, Image Comics, Dark Horse, Oni Press, and a host of other legendary production companies and labels. As is our way, we saw a mountain and had no choice but to climb it. Eventually, we both settled for far less, shall we say, hustle-forward industry jobs, and interestingly enough, both found our way into wine independent of one another, and eventually realized we had great connections in both entertainment and now a deep interest in wine.
We actually had this 2-year gap where we hadn't gotten together or interacted much at all. And when I found out Dallas had become a big fat wine nerd like me during this interim, I had already been posting these little wine and comic pairings on social media, which had actually received really great responses. Like the comic people were like, this is so cool, wine and comic. I mean, it was something where it's like, no one's doing this at the time. This was like 2.5-ish, maybe 3 years ago at this point. So there was like, now there actually is this little version burgeoning like wine and movie, wine and something pairing, which a lot of, I'm assuming, I'm going to call myself younger blood because in the wine world, my age is still young. I ain't young, folks, but all things comparative. But these little younger blood wine folks who are getting into it are having similar epiphanies that I had. But at the time, there was like nothing like this going on online. So I posted these little wine and comic pairings. The comic people loved them. Some of the wine people, when I tagged them on it, loved what they were doing. They're like, oh, you paired our wine with a comic. That's really cool. So I had this kernel of an idea, though, for a YouTube show where we did wine and comic pairings, and I essentially strong-armed Dallas into not making me do it solo, because I was a little afraid. I knew no one else who drank wine. I was in a relationship at the time. She didn't drink any wine. All of my friends were talking about I'm not actually young. They were all like, oh, I can't drink alcohol anymore. I mean, it was like across the board. They were all cutting back. They were on diets. They were diabetic. I was like, oh, Jesus, what is happening in my life? I had gotten into wine just as everyone else was falling out into the wagon, climbing into the wagon. So our very first sketchy, very low tech, very rough video dropped in late 2022. It was weird. It was wacky. It was awesome. But video also requires so much editing and prep and setup that we were posting only like 1 to 2 videos a month while we were doing this quote unquote, the wine and comics pairing show on YouTube. I love a handful of those videos, but I also realized pretty quickly that we were not video guys. We didn't have the equipment, the know-how, or the editing skills. And I personally wasn't honestly all that interested in learning, like spending all my time and being devoted to learning how to create slick videos. I was more interested in the conversation side of things. But first, before we became a podcast, because we were focused on comics, live streaming was the far more popular format for anything involving that industry. So we moved from pre-recorded video to 2 to 3 live streams per week and almost died. We met a lot of great creators this way. I mean, truly, they all said they really enjoyed the unique format that we had versus the same old interview format that they were doing for all their other live streams. All those pre-recorded videos and live streams can all still be found on our YouTube channel, Vintertainment Studios, under the playlist. Yeah.
I said, do not go watch those.
No, they're great. Honestly, some of them really hold up surprisingly well.
It's just a whole bunch of giggling and umming.
In fact, one of the pre-recorded videos, one of our second one that we ever did, is going to be one of my all-time favorites. I'm going to shout out later and tell everyone to go watch. But you can watch all of this and find all the live streams and all the pre-recorded videos. There's not much. There's like, I think a dozen, maybe a little more than a dozen, but then the live streams are, like I said, they're 2 to 3 a week for many months. There's a lot of those. There's like 50 of those. But you can find all of that if you ever care to, at our YouTube channel, Vintertainment Studios, under the playlist Legacy Wine and Comics Pairing Show. Now, during all this time, my real dream was to get our guests to do a wine pairing, to discuss work that wasn't their own, but something they loved or hated and were passionate about. We would, of course, shout out whoever they were, whatever they had going on for promotion, but then the core subject matter of the show would be about covering a movie, TV show, book, comic, or music album, anything within the entertainment sphere that the guest wanted to talk about. Then we'd pair wines with that. And I thought the ideal format for these would be an audio podcast rather than a YouTube-style visual video, because the conversation would be the point.
And thus, Wine Ann was born, both as a podcast and a Substack. Each episode would finish the ellipsis. So, for example, Wine Ann ... movies, Speed Racer, 2008, or Wine Ann ... music, Emotion by Carly Rae Jepsen, 2015.
Woo!
And then we'd name the special guest if there was one as well.
And additionally, I started writing articles on Substack, bonus pairings, thoughts about the wine and entertainment industry. Substack has since very much become our home base and the place to follow us, support us, and interact with us.
And finally, and in short, we have officially rebranded as Vintertainment. A brilliant and much better title, Dave's words, not mine, even though I, of course, naturally came up with it. Vintertainment is still the same podcast that it has always been under the Wine Ann title. It will still be the curious corner of the world where we pair wine with all sorts of entertainment and entertainment experiences. So what changes for you, our audience? Not a lot at the moment. Vintertainment will at its core still be what you've come to enjoy about our show, but over time, we'll begin to explore new angles and new approaches. For example, we'll be introducing conversations about current challenges faced by both the entertainment and wine industries, and plans for much, much more. And if you're as annoyed by name changes as I am, just take into consideration that we were almost called Wine Daddies. That's right.
Ooh.
Wine daddies. There is a world where you would have to justify unironically listening to an obnoxious podcast called Wine Daddies. So you'll take your entertainment and you will love it, as we do. And as always, thank you for taking this crazy little ride with us.
I will say, though, Dallas still threatens that we will have a shop called Wine Daddies one of these days.
Yeah, it's probably going to happen.
It's probably going to happen. One of the that's not like for me. I want to have my pie in the sky dream. I'm going to say it here on the podcast once and only once. I say once and only once, but I'm probably going to drop this all the time. But I want to do a wine shop where it's like, well, my true pie in the sky is like a wine shop that carries wines from all 50 states in America.
Yeah.
I really want to do that.
That's a solid idea. I think
it's a solid idea. Our distribution system would fuck that up. I mean, things have to change. I think I need to dig deeper into that, but that sounds horrifically difficult to do. Yes. Yeah. But maybe what I could do is like an odd duck wine shop where it's like all wines that you didn't realize existed, you've never heard of. Like, you want your Cabernet? We ain't got no stinking Cabernet, but we'll have Cabernet-like things, and we'll tell you what they are. I mean, again, the worst business plans in the world, right?
Oh, yeah,
like nothing that people have ever heard of or ever thought they'd want to drink. That's us. Come into our shop. Maybe we can get the patriotic pie, though, right? Because all American, something like that. Okay, folks. So right now, what we're going to do to wrap this up today is we're going to shout out our favorite episodes of both our legacy shows and our When We Were Wine And, so our last season and change before we just rebranded. Just so, if you're new to us, if you're finding us with this episode, you have a few things that, curated by us that we're very proud of, that we think start there, listen to those, then come rejoin us next week as we continue on down this Vintertainment path. So, Dallas, name your first episode that is your favorite.
I'm going to say, and I hate using the word favorite, all of these babies are our favorite for sure. But this is our this is just a great sampling, a great flight, if you will, of...
You are all our children, and we love you even if we're disappointed in you.
Stop it. Anyway, I'm going to start with the Speed Racer episode with Justin.
Our very first, under the name Wine And, our first podcast.
Man, that was such a great episode. And I'll tell you why. The reason it was such a great episode was because it forced me to go back and review this film through different eyes, right? First of all, the eyes of a person who'd just been drinking a half bottle of wine, which is always good when you're revisiting something.
Yep.
But on top of that, having Justin's perspective on the film, in the course of the conversation we dug up so much trivia about the film, about the making of the film, about the theories behind the film. And if I'm honest, this film was so much better and so much more interesting a decade later than I gave it credit for. And it all came out in the course of this episode. So I would say start there. That's probably a great little amuse-bouche into what we do here. Yeah. What about you,
Beautiful. Dave? So I'm going to go way back. Let's start with the oldest that I'm going to shout out. I have 2 episodes from our pre-recorded video days that I think are well worth everyone's time because they're quite unique, especially unique for us. But our very first, really the only one that we pulled off successfully, our blind tasting of Barolos.
Okay, I'll add that one too. Yes.
It worked so well. We tried it again with Riojas, and we filmed it on this camera that was insane, and it took us forever to actually do the edit and kind of got lost. We did a Sauvignon Blanc blind tasting that, like, the footage just never came together either. But this one, this is the one that worked. And it was our second ever anything that we ever attempted to do. I will have a link down below in the description of this episode directly to that YouTube channel. Look, guys, it's not slick. It's just us sitting on a couch drinking. It is well edited, I think, but we do 6 Barolos, 2 budget, 1 middle of the road, about $30 a bottle, and then 2 expensive. And we blind taste and rank them. And there were a few upsets in that ranking system that was quite surprising. And then we paired it with comics at the time. So we're like, what do you drink Barolo with? And we each picked a comic and said so. And then, of course, ranked all of these. So I still think that's one of the best things we've ever done. And it was so early. Beginner's luck, right? We were almost never recaptured that again, even though we tried.
Pure. It was so pure and was so earnest and so honest.
Yes.
And it is, you will see the origins of Dave and our energy together, because it is a weird thing where, and I call it being in the sandbox. Sometimes he and I just end up being the only people in the room geeking out to whatever the fuck we're talking about. And that's essentially what this episode is. So, yeah.
And then the other one I'm going to shout out from the old Legacy show is when we interviewed Bad Kids Press. The two, we got to interview the publisher and then one of the main creators there. They had each done their own comic at Bad Kids Press. Bad Kids Press is it's a comic shop and a small publishing house for comics. They do creator-owned titles, and they had 2 titles, Frankenrocker and the Jailbait Punks, and the other one, the Galactic Federation of Wrestling, or GWF, and they both had wines.
Yeah.
That they worked with a wine company to we're going to source. They were, the Frankenrocker one was a Vin de Paille from France. And then the Jailbait Punk was a Côte de Rhône.
Right.
And they were both honestly good. They were good.
They're good wines.
They were not. I mean, anyone who's had Vin de Paille, they're not mind blowing, but they're very good, especially for the price. These are both $15 bottles of wine, of red wine, and they were branded. It was the Frankenrocker wine and the
Great
Red
labels.
Menace, who's the character, in the GWF. And I'd never seen a comic branded, officially wine before. And that was, so we interviewed them. We interviewed how that came about, how those wines came to be. Now they are in, I'm going to say Minneapolis, or Minnesota. Oh, I'm going to forget. Go check. We'll have links again to these episodes. It's 2 parts because we interviewed 2 different people about each of these wines and their respective comics and the wine that goes with it. We tasted the wine. We talk about it on the episode. We talk about the comic. We talk about how their relationship and partnership to make these wines came to be. And I just thought that was so unique. We've never stumbled across anything quite like that since. So definitely check those guys out. Oh yeah, I was going to say though, whatever city they're in, whatever state they're in, you can find out if you can watch these videos, but it's in a place where it's they're not allowed, but legally it's one of those states where it's you can't ship out of state. They can't send you the wine. They sent it to us as samples because you're allowed to send the press samples. So those were our first press samples too.
They were our first press samples.
Because that was the only way to get our hands on them. So unfortunately, a lot of you won't be able to get your hands on them because you can't buy it. They cannot send them to you, or at least currently with the current distributor. But they're hoping to find distributors for other states. But this is why my wine shop, carrying wines from all 50 states, our 3-tier system is so fucked up that it's kind of a problem. But anyways, that's my first shout out. Dallas, next for you.
I'm gonna go next with we'll go with La Revancha del Tango from the Go Time Project with Kate Rochelle. If you guys have not listened to that episode, it's
2-part episode.
2-part, actually, yeah, that's right, 2-part episode. Kate, essentially, Kate chose the album, right? She chose that album. Yeah, she did. And it was such a great conversation. She had such great insight, a great connection to the album. It made me a fan. I remember it was a callback for me because I remember one of their songs, which was rather ubiquitous, and it was on this album. I didn't know where it was from. And so sort of a full circle moment there. Yeah, great episode, 2-parter. I would highly recommend you pour a glass of wine and listen to this album from start to finish. And
Yeah, the album blew me away too. I was really happy when she chose it. Before she chose it, I had already stumbled across her Substack, which,
right.
by the way, survives on wine.
Oh, yes.
Substack.com.
Check it
That's where you
out.
can find her. But you can also go check out those episodes. All that information is there as well. And she had already posted a wine and recipe and album pairing. And this album was that album. And I loved it. I'd never heard of the guys before. The Gotan Project, which is Tango backwards, by the way, guys.
That's right. That's right.
Or not quite. Gotan is...
yeah.
It's what the two syllables remix, like switched, right? So go, tang, go, right? Yeah. So yeah, all right. For me, I'm next going to shout out. Once again, I got to do kind of a 2-in-1 because it's my thing, right? That's being on brand for me. Always 2-in-1, right?
You know what? You can never just pick one.
Yes, I got to do the 2 episodes we've done Carly Rae Jepsen albums on. One with a longtime online friend, screenwriter Mark Palermo, screenwriter of Detention. If you've never seen the movie, the horror black comedy genre mashup Detention from 2011, go check that out. It's one of my all-time favorite movies. 5 stars on letter, like 10 out of 10, 100 out of 100, whatever you want to call it. It is an incredible, wacky as shit movie unlike anything you've ever quite seen before. Trust me. Get past the first 10 minutes. At first, it looks like something you've seen before. Keep watching. It is not. But we did one with Mark, and Mark had we had kind of bonded online because we were both Carly Rae Jepsen fans in later life. Like we didn't know who she was, and then all of a sudden, her Emotion album from 2015 is one that we talked to Mark about. And this was one of the things when we started the podcast and all through the Wine and Comics Pairing Show, when I was thinking, ooh, I want to expand beyond comics. This was a pie in the sky thing to bring Mark on and talk Carly Rae Jepsen's Emotion album. It was one of my like bucket list items that I wanted to do with this podcast. And the fact that we did it right away in season 1, which I knew we would, but nevertheless, it was kind of dream come true-y in that regard. So I'm so happy about that. And then a comic creator, Anas Abdulik, who we had met on the Wine and Comics Pairing Show, was also a Carly Rae Jepsen fan. So we also talked to him about her dedicated album, the follow-up to Emotion. And one day we will cover all of Carly Rae's discography eventually.
All right, calm down there, buddy. Calm down.
Those were the 2 that we did for season 1, and you should go check out both of them. Okay, Dallas, what do you got next?
All right, I'm going to go with Shin Godzilla and Godzilla versus Kong with Stryker Reese. At my core, I'm a kaiju guy, and I loved our sort of, not even comparison, but our sort of side by side of these experiences of these features. Stryker had some great commentary, had some great ideas. We learned lots of great trivia, and mostly in that episode, I came away I guess the audience also came away, because I had a few people listen to it and we had some conversations, understanding the sort of socio-political sort of background of the Godzilla mythos. And it was made a bit more evident for them when they listened to this episode, particularly when we sort of contrasted these 2 films. So definitely go check that one out. How about you, Dave?
All right. Yeah. And Stryker Reese, Anime and Wine is what he's known as, where he always puts anime and wine together. He has a website, Instagram account. Go check that guy out. He's very, very cool. Great stuff. Wine professional. Yeah. But then that was his fun thing. Like we did wine and comics. He did wine and anime. I was like, oh, fucking perfect. Yeah. We have to have this guy on. Next for me, I think I'm going to choose our episode where we covered The Benighted novel by J.B. Priestley. It was our first novel we ever did on the show. And I think it's one of those things where, like, when I was editing the conversation was a really good one. It flowed. It wasn't over long. We stayed right on topic. We had a lot of interesting things to say, both about the novel, the movie that is probably more famous than the novel, at least in America. The comparison and contrast between the movie and the novel, even though that wasn't something we meant to do, but we wound up having that conversation anyway. And it was a great one. The wine pairings I thought were so on point. It was a little chef's kiss. And it was just the 2 of us, no guest on that one. But it was one of those conversations where I was just like, this if this can be every episode, we're fucking golden. It has not been every episode. So, but that is the goal. That is the one where I look back on and I'm like, yeah, that I want to return to that as often as we can. Next for you.
Next for me is going to be the epic live stream with Fairgray and Blake. That's Richard Fairgray and Blake's Buzz.
Yes. The one live stream we're going to shout out here.
I will let Dave give us
obscene.
the background on this one because it's fascinating. Give it to him.
Yeah. So Richard Fairgray is a comic creator. He had been on a couple of times before, and this time he was like, "What's the longest live stream you've ever done?" And I was like, "I don't know." He's like, "How long do you think you can go?" I was like, "I don't know." And so we got on this one evening, and it went 4.5 hours long. It's all online. It's still there. It's on our YouTube channel.
This is the one I think this was I started the episode and I had to check out at like hour 2 for a prior commitment. And of course, as I'm heading out, they're like still talking. And I don't hear from Dave until the next day. And I hear, oh yeah, we went like 4 hours. And I was like, what?
Yeah. And someone took Dallas's place, right? Someone in the chat, Blake Morgan from Blake's Buzz, who's also, he has a Substack. He's also on Substack. He's on YouTube. He has his own review show. He was a big live streamer as well at the time. And he was
Blake's known for his ranting, by the way. Blake is known for his ranting.
Brilliant rants, though. So you should definitely go check his stuff out. But he was in the chat session at the time. And he's like, oh, you need someone else to come on? I was like, yeah, okay. So I quickly sent him the link. At the time we were using StreamYard. I was like, yeah, here's the StreamYard link. Come on board. He came on. We were still a foursome at that point, or a threesome, I guess. And then we went and went and went. And it's so funny. The next time Richard was on the live stream show, which did happen like a month or two later, and we were like, yeah, we're not doing that again. Yeah. But we just did a normal kind of timed, like 1.5-ish hour live stream. But halfway through, he saw me there was something on my bookshelf behind me that I wanted to go get. So I turned around and went and got it and brought it back to the screen. And it was the first time Richard suddenly was like, wait, Dave, are you standing? And I was like, yeah, it's a standing desk. I'm always standing. And he suddenly did the Home Alone, like both hands on both sides of his face. And he was like, oh, you stood the all 4.5 hours on that live stream? I was like, yeah, I did. And he's like, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. And I was like, yeah, I guess I always think it looks like I'm standing, but I guess when you're head and shoulders, I guess people really can't tell. But yeah, I was, by the end of that live stream, I was shifting so much. I was like one leg up on the desk, the next leg up on the desk, now one leg behind me, now I'm in a wide horse stance, now I'm in a narrow little. I was just like, oh god, I'm dying. This is too much standing in one place, right? You're not moving really. So yeah, that epic live stream, we will have a link down below again. You can at least click through it and see the different stages of insanity. And by the time, and how loopy we were by the end of it, I'm not even sure we were making sense by the final half hour, if I'm being honest.
All right. That's one of yours too, Dave. Oh yeah, that's totally one of yours as well.
Yeah. But I mean, you brought it up. I'll go real quick, then I'll hand it right back to you. Yeah, but you know what? Speaking of Richard Fairgray, our two-parter on Batman Returns here on the Wine and podcast. We did a deep dive on that movie.
Chef's kiss on that one as well.
Yes, we compared all the mini script iterations with each other. The original by Sam Hamm, who wrote the original Tim Burton Batman, but his script was eventually almost entirely done away with. Dan Waters' first draft. And then the rewrites by the Swick fella who came in. And then Dan Waters, we had lots of quotes from him about the whole experience and how it worked. The making of, we had these great tidbits about the Robin character who was cut ultimately from the film. He didn't show up until the fourth film. But in the second film, it was... which Wayans brother was it? Not Jamie Wayans, not Damon Wayans. Marlon Wayans. Marlon Wayans was going to be Robin. There was an action figure that was made and then repainted to be a white Robin, but still kind of had Marlon Wayans' due with his hair. And so there was lots of fun tidbits about that. We went really deep into the Batman Returns movie. It's a two-parter, each one a little over an hour. but really well worth your time. That I'm really proud of that.
That's a good
single episode that became
That's a good
2
one.
episodes.
That's a good one.
Okay, Dallas, back to you.
So Concrete Park is a piece by Tony Puryear and Erica Alexander, who are formerly married, but they're still production partners. Erica Alexander, if anyone knows, she's an actress. She was starred on a show called Living Single, which has been noted as the premise that was stolen allegedly for Friends. But it's a great, very funny show starring Queen Latifah and Erica Alexander from the 90s, I believe. But they wrote this piece called Concrete Park, and it's just a lovely
Which is
piece.
you're calling it a piece. What is it?
Oh, sorry. It's a graphic novel, people. It's
There you go. I'm like, you're not. It's like it's a piece, and I'm like, dude, come on, comic, graphic novel. Tell them what it is.
Hilarious. That's a testament to the fact that we've moved on from just comics and graphic novels in our office.
Yes.
But Concrete Park, it is a great little piece. Or an urban setting. It is. It's one of those pieces I rarely ever explain what it's about because I want people to kind of just wade through it because it just unfolds so much. Like it's just so good, and the world's so fun, and it's so realized, and it has a great backbone, great heart, and just kind of great.
And very different. It's got recognizable hallmarks, but it is unique.
Yeah, great voice, great everything. Yeah. Go for it, Dave.
Well, I'll wrap us up with I'm going to shout out the episode where we covered the movie Moon with special guest Jessica Mason, who is also a writer, graphic novelist, and filmmaker in her own right. And I actually learned she was a filmmaker on this episode when she told us about she picked Moon because she was obsessed with any story about doppelgangers or doubles of some kind. And then she's like, I made my own doppelganger movie, like very indie, ultra low budget, which I have since purchased on Amazon. And so now I have a copy for myself. I still haven't watched it, but I need to. And Moon, I thought that was a great conversation. The wine pairings, again, really on point. Even Jessica's pairings, really on point. I loved what she came up with. We got deep into the making of Moon and some really great tidbits there. And of course, it's part of a loose trilogy by director Duncan Jones. And hopefully we'll have Jessica on this season to do the second one, which is Mute, the Netflix original. That is technically a sequel to Moon. And even shows Sam Rockwell's character in Moon makes an appearance, and you get to see the fate of his character after the end of Moon if you watch this movie. So we're going to cover that, and then the third, which is a graphic novel, which is the third part of the trilogy, someday as well with Jessica. But yeah, that one also just really sang, and believe me, guys, there are so many more episodes I want to share. Like just standing here listening, like our Home for the Holidays holiday episode, I really liked. Our election movie is really great. The Civil Wars album that we did with Maria Banson. The Sex Criminals graphic novel conversation. That was the other conversation that I thought, as a conversation just between the two of us, I was like, ooh, this sings. This went really well. But I beat it out by a hair, and I'm trying not to shout every fucking episode out, right? We love our babies. That's right. But folks, there will be links to go check out all these episodes down below. Go check them out. Whichever ones sounded interesting to you. But we're going to call it here today. We are now Vintertainment. Are you not Vintertained?
Are you not Vintertained? There we go.
But we will be back in 1 week with another wine and entertainment pairing for your Vintertainment. The new closing catchphrase. Dallas is giving me this look like, I don't know how much I like that, but I don't care. That's our new closing phrase. That's right. But I have a little bit more. We're going to have this is going to be a little bit, we have rebranded fully, but like a new opening theme song is in the works. It might be ready by the time this episode drops. It might not. It might be next week. It might not, but it's in the works. And so we're very excited about everything we have coming up going forward. We still have some very exciting wine and entertainment conversations that are already planned, already booked on the calendar. We have some epic. We still have our epic non-alcoholic wine tasting,
right.
which we're about to do within a couple of weeks here, which will also be featured. We'll do an episode here on the podcast talking about it, though it will be a video as well on YouTube. We're probably going to do the video to see the tasting, and then a podcast episode to quickly dissect kind of the autopsy of how it went, which we'll do here on the pod. But so much coming up. Thanks so much for listening. If you've been with us from the beginning, thank you so much for listening. You are a super fan in our eyes. And once again, follow us on Substack because, man, we would love to see you there. That's where we are more often than just this podcast. And we will see you next time. Ciao for now, folks.
Later, guys.
Bye.
It makes me feel sophisticated, makes me one hell of a dancer. Don't judge my messed up makeup, waking up the morning after. Lets me talk and talk for hours, doesn't have to understand. Don't ask for much, makes me blush. Tell me who needs a man when you got wine. We're both getting better with time. Yeah, yeah. When I need to let go, just hold me by the hand. Good love comes and goes. So who needs a man when you've got wine? Yeah, wine. Yeah. Gets along real good with mama. She might be more